Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals a night ago, 127-114. Thunder get the win. They take the 3-2 series lead with a win on their home floor. Spurs now playing for their season on Thursday night in Game 6. This is a series that has had pockets of it that have been really fun to watch. Obviously, Game 1 was unbelievable, but there's also, as we've discussed ad nauseum over the course of this series, there is a hateable aspect of it as well. Where do you stand on it? I know, there is. Well, listen, you're allowed to be a fan, and being a Spurs fan is an acceptable thing in this state.
I am from San Antonio. Let that be known.
I was going to say,
and there's a lot of Dallasites that are probably going, you know what, that looks really good from here compared to what we're dealing with right now. So it's understandable. What is your level of concern going into Thursday?
Concern? I mean, I've been concerned going into every game. This is a win or your season ends. So I would say my personal level of concern a little heightened compared to hopefully how the guys who are actually playing the game and coaching in the game feel. My level of concern comes from the fact that we watched Mr. Gilgeous-Alexander take 17 free throw attempts last night and make 16 of them. Over half of his points coming from the charity stripe. I know that's nothing new.
Exactly half.
I know.
He had 32.
Yeah. I think, like I said, not surprising, but just annoying. I mean, I don't know. And I will say, you compare Game 5 and the way it was officiated to Game 4 and the way that was officiated. Look, this has been a physical series. We knew that coming in. I think Stephon Castle said after one of the games, like, yeah, I expected there to be blood on the floor before. I think that was Game 5, because it has been a war. But I don't know. I feel like last night especially, officiating was too much of a storyline in the game than what I feel like it should have been in a series that is this rich.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the reason why OKC is hateable right now, is that it feels like that they know how to draw fouls, or at least make it appear like they're about to end up on the floor because of something physical.
Yeah. That is to say, like, Victor Wembanyama having 1 rebound in the first half. What's happening there?
He was interestingly quiet last night. For him to only go 4 of 15 from the floor is
concerning.
Now listen, I know between Hartenstein and Chet, OKC's got some bodies to throw at him and make his life difficult, but it's rare to see him that quiet.
He's been throwing Chet to the woodshed, though.
Well, and
I know. But
throughout this season, we've seen smaller guys be more difficult for him to play against. But yes, no, that's a very valid point. I don't know if something else was going on. He didn't speak after the game, which is very unlike, any star player, especially in the playoffs. Like, it is a requirement for these guys to speak to the media, and he didn't speak at all. So I don't know if there's something more personal going on there, but 4 of 15, yeah. And then 6, I think he had 6 total rebounds. It's just not a performance you're used to seeing out of him in general, let alone in the playoffs. And in a game where you're in Oklahoma City, you're coming off like the best playoff game they've played in Game 4.
So that's the thing to me, and this is the flop reel real quick for most of OKC, just to kind of have this up in the background. But this is the part of the Wemby discussion that still feels a little premature.
Yeah.
We were ready to put them in the NBA Finals after Game 1.
Yeah.
And there's a realistic possibility that they could have lost the next 4 and been over in 5. It could still be over in 6. You know what I mean? It's not saying Wemby isn't a great player, but until you put the championship on the table, some of this stuff needs to get pumped a little bit. Pump the brakes, right? Yeah. And it's not saying he is not fantastic. It's not saying SGA probably isn't a tad overrated given what he does, mainly trying to get to the free throw line as the major aspect of his game. But he also knows how to game the system and has proven he can win. And that's part of the issue with the Spurs team right now. They are still very young. Like, ridiculously young. And a lot of these guys were around, Vassell included. Keldon Johnson had some big minutes yesterday, but he's been around for a while. A lot of these guys have been part of this transition from the Spurs finally having a down couple of years back into a contender. And a lot of this is relearning how to capture that championship magic. It's nice to have Pop and Duncan up there in the booth watching, but they're not on the floor, and they have to prove it out there on the floor. That's the aggressiveness that I want to see from Wemby in Game 6. I want him to remind people, it's like, no, I am the best player in the world, and we're going to Game 7, and it's a coin flip, and let's see who wins.
Now I'm asking you, Victor Wembanyama, did you order the code red? Did he order a couple of blows to Jared McCain late in that game last night? That was it looked suspicious. As Bismack Biyombo comes on the floor, and then Biyombo and I forget who the other one was, Mason Plumlee, both some pretty serious shots to Jared McCain, who had a fantastic game, first start in the postseason, hit a bunch of threes, was really instrumental in the Thunder winning that game last night, and he went to the floor hard a couple of times. It was interesting.
Very objectively, have you seen any of the hair pulls on one Stephon Castle throughout this series? I don't think we've seen it in the NBA. I'm kidding. That's aggressive.
Very objectively.
What were you going to say?
No, I'm just saying you brought up the officiating inconsistency, but that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like all we're asking from this is games 1 through 7, maybe 7 called a little bit looser. Let them play a little bit more as the series progresses. But don't let these games be decided by phantom contact. You know what I mean? It's got to be something that's meaningful. You can't just see someone on the ground and assume, oh, that's a foul. Like, there are classic examples in high school and soccer where it's like the guys that go to the ground the most are the ones that you should trust the least in terms of whether they were actually fouled or not.
I will say, too, I think the Spurs, throughout the season, like, they were never a really good three-point team. There were games where they went off, for sure. Julian Champagnie and Dumb Vassell can knock it down from deep. But it was not like their bread and butter. They were not the Golden State Warriors of the Steph Curry prime era where, like, they can shoot from beyond the arc, lights out, consistently. They took, in my opinion, they settled for way too many threes in this game. And to shoot, 29% from three-point land. And more importantly, 41 of their 92 field goal attempts were three-point attempts. You compare that to the Thunder's 32 of 83, and I would say the Thunder shot 43% from three last night. Like,
and granted, they are a lot of games are decided by percentages on the three-point line, but a lot of it speaks to the lack of aggressiveness inside.
Exactly, yes. And that is where, if you have Victor Wembanyama, your ability to play through him and get inside, not to mention the lob threat and how good the Spurs have been with the lob and the guards that are really good at creating within the paint. Like, that was alarmingly absent in yesterday's game. So I think that was, and you compare that again to game 4, and it's like, how are we watching such different games from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5? I guess that's really good coaching is what that is.
I was just going to say that sounds like coaching as much as anything else. But
yeah.
Either way, it's on Wemby's shoulders moving forward here. Like, that's part of this. It has to run through him, and he will decide how this series goes based off of how much he scores and how much he influences the game.
If the Spurs don't come back in this series, the talk is going to begin about a Thunder dynasty. If they're able to go back-to-back, which I think we all believe that whoever wins this series is going to beat the Knicks,
I'm not so sure.
No, I don't think
I'm not so sure.
You're not sure that...
This has been a physical contest the whole way through, and New York's sitting pretty already with their feet up, resting, ready to go.
Not to mention, there are 2 teams this season that have been problematic for the Spurs. One was the Timberwolves, which they did get past, but the other is the Knicks.
And who blew them out by 30 in the last game.
And they won one of the games in San Antonio because Julian Champagnie made a historic 11 three-pointers in that game. Like, I think the Knicks pose a legitimate threat to the Spurs. If the Spurs are to get past them, I also think, to your point, no, actually, I think the Thunder beat the Knicks if they go back.
I'm not so sure. I feel like if as much as SGA is getting a favorable whistle, you don't think the league's going to give New York a favorable whistle in the potential NBA Finals? Let them play a little bit more. I think that favors the New York in that regard. But maybe I'm leaning too hard in that facet.
It would be fascinating to see New York Knicks NBA champions. Like, that would break the internet.
Oh my God, that would break New York City. You think the celebrations in San Antonio have been wild?
Right.
Yeah.
New York would be on fire.
But
literally,
if that doesn't happen, if the Spurs can't come back, if the Knicks don't beat whoever comes out, if it is the Thunder that win another championship, and now we're talking about back-to-back champions, back-to-back MVPs for SGA, what does that do for the health of the league relative to how much everybody seems to dislike the way this team does their thing outside of the bounds of Oklahoma, which begs a whole other question about Oklahoma being the center of the basketball universe right now. What does that do to the league? That feels, what does that do to basketball in general, that this
is being rewarded.
Flop God Central is being rewarded, is the thing that kids that are 10, 12, 16, 18 years old that are trying to make their way in this game, this is what they're seeing work at the NBA level in the finals, winning championships, winning MVPs. This is what is the example right now.
There's two things. One, work smarter, not harder. So he's doing what he needs to. I don't think I'm faulting SGA as much as other people are. I don't like watching it. I'll be honest. I think it's not a great product. But he's doing what he has to find a way to win. So I'm not going to kill him for that. But what I will say is this. It reminds me a little bit of Durant, where it's just like, okay, we know who's going to win at the end of the season. You know what I mean? More so because of the style of play. More so because we knew heading into this year that the Thunder get a favorable whistle. We know how SGA plays, and we're still here, almost verging on June, with the same results practically. Like, there's a frustration element to that, not because he's not unstoppable, but it's because there are solutions that aren't getting picked up, and that's frustrating.